on this week's FAS TV.
My gravestone is going to say, Katie, change the plan, Brisbane. But if I change those words around, change the plan changed, is where I am now. Yeah, it's amazing.
Land, legacy and leadership are the themes for this year's Women in Agriculture conference. We hear from Katie Brisbane, one of the conference's main speakers, who shares her experiences of the importance of planning for the future and succession following the loss of her husband in a tragic farm accident. Succession is often a difficult conversation for many farming families, but Katie's story highlights that this doesn't have to be, and ensuring that the right conversations are had at the right time could help everyone involved.
So it was the 15th of September 2023. You're sitting in my office. I'm sitting in my office just now. So as you can see, it's got big open windows and that. It was a Friday. I always remember a Friday because myself and my daughter who work at home, and maybe anyone else who works at home, finds that a Friday is the day that you achieve a lot. I don't know why or if there's anything behind it, but yeah, on a Friday you're achieving. So I'd had a great day, nipped out my bike early in the morning, getting on with the work. It was going great. Alan had come in and he said something that was just bizarre. He goes, you know, farmers, like in a year like this, because it was a really catchy year, we kept getting rain, we couldn't get the thing in 2023. And he goes, farmers like me, I've nailed it. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Nailed it. That's not something he would have said. But he'd managed to get the first crop sprayed, the first spray after the autumn crops had gone in. And so he came in for his 3 o'clock tea. He was very much a clockwork farmer. We had 9 o'clock, 9:30 tea, lunchtime was 12, tea at 3 o'clock, and then his tea at night was 5:30, and that's how they work. Not how I'd grown up like that, believe you me, it was quite different. Anyway, so he headed back out, I was working on, and listening, I always had the radio on, heard sirens, and I'm like, why is the person who's phoning in on the radio not switching the siren off, or they're cutting that out? And that's when I looked out the window and saw an ambulance coming here, saw it turning in and thought, it's done what everybody else does, it should be somewhere else, I'll go and find out where it is. And as I went out, I heard a neighbour shouting, Katie, it's Alan, it's for us, it's for us. So in the shed I went, and it turned out that Alan had had a fall, not a very high fall, from a ladder. He'd been up working in the grain dryer and had hit his head on the way down, so he was unconscious. But he had been on the phone to this neighbour, so when the conversation had ended, the neighbour had heard a thud and tried to phone him back and not been able to, so had come along, and that's how he was found so quickly. And this speed of reaction was what actually, in the end of the whole thing, gave us a little bit of a chance, a little bit of a breathing space. He was helicoptered to Glasgow, but his injuries were such that he could only live for 2 days. And then for me, the nicest part of it all, which is something that I will bring up at the conference, is he was a donor. And with that extra time, he was able to donate organs to everyone. So for me, and as a family, we were told of his passing as it was a huge success because they managed to harvest more organs than they had originally thought. So it's quite a nice way to be told that you've lost someone. So yeah, so quite sudden, and yeah, then I had a farm and 4 kids, and it's like, yeah, let's go. All farmers they're incredibly skilled. I would say Alan was probably at the highest end of that, because not only was he very good at building sheds, at welding, maintaining things. He was quite an engineer, incredibly good at maths, so he could do all the spreadsheets and all of the kind of accounting stuff, the paperwork stuff on farming, as well as being an animal person. So when you've got someone who is as skilled as that and can do everything, it often means that they are working on their own quite a lot. So the other thing about the farm here at Westwood Lane, as you will see when we go out, it's incredibly tidy. That is not my doing, that is his. It's the way they work. Very, very efficient, tidy farmers, which I think is very important in safety. And so it was a total freak accident, really. Possibly, I could say, if there had been a box on the pallet because he was working from a pallet rather than a box, it may have stopped it, but we don't think it probably did, because we think it was as he was coming down the ladder, he stepped off. The most unfortunate thing was there was a ledge on the shed. So it was the ledge that hit his head. It wasn't I think it was 8.5 feet he fell. So that's not life-threatening to fall 8.5 feet. You might break your arm or your leg, but yeah, he was unlucky in that respect. Everything was in place. Again, it's a lot of the way I was brought up, but also marrying someone who was equally as efficient. So I inherited what I was going to be inheriting from my family at the age of 18. And by coincidence, that worked really well, because worked in my favour, losing my father a year later. There was none of that needing to be sorted out. The farm here, again, we had already done the process of separating the business and having the separate wills. So all that was organised. My father-in-law was ahead of his game, I think. So he had stepped right back out of the partnership before, which is now what we're talking about. He had his house. He still came to the farm and worked every day, but he was out of the partnership before he died. And do it early, get it sorted, and have some plans. These plans can change, but the basics you need your will, you need a rough idea of your succession plan, and you need to know what happens when the inevitable happens. And that's two main things that you need to consider. And I was saying this to Mary Jane, is who do you call? Because on your phone, again, you'll have, in case of an emergency, the ICE button, where we all put our next of kin. But have a think, right, if something happens to that next of kin, then who do you call? And quite often if you think about it, it's the right person. So, for example, when my father died, I was 19. He had committed suicide in the early hours of the morning. My mother had found him, and it's like, right now, what do I do? And I phoned the neighbour, and it was the right person to call, because he knew what to do. He told me what to do, and it falls into place. But if I had left it to chance, they would have been trying to call my brothers or my sisters that were further away from home, and it leaves you in a state of limbo. For me here, I've got my neighbour who's a nurse, and I think she's the emergency person for half the road here, to be honest. That's who we call. So have someone in place who you would call. Know where you are and know who to speak to. With working for RET, I do risk assessments for farms for schools to visit all the time. So I learned it through there. But What 3 Words is a very simple app. You download it. When you hit that button, it tells you within a metre square where you are. Your postcode, some of you might have OS maps or something like that, but put What 3 Words on your phone and that's it. And I've had really good fun just with it, because it's quite fascinating as to what 3 words they are, which is why I've called the talk that we're doing today, that I'm going to be doing, Story Club Imposter. But it could be the other way around, and it could be different ways around. The way you can write it is really different. My gravestone is going to say, Katie, change the plan, Brisbane. But if I change those words around, change the plan changed, is where I am now. Yeah, it's amazing. Talk about what you do, make sure you know what you do, and include all of your family. Know the basics. Now, Alan was, as I said, he was quite a clever person, but he was also quite a basic person. So he loved playing Farming Simulator. He was good at doing spreadsheets. He wrote a diary and he kept a diary. And that diary is what has got me through that first year, because I could run the farm by looking at exactly what he'd done the year before or the year before that. He had a lot of plans. We also talked a lot about the stage that we were in our farming story. So the kids were leaving home, and this is something that we had talked about. So he loved to plan, he loved to make lists. Now, usually one person that is that person that makes the list or likes to write things down. It's just good just to have that conversation, have that talk. We're not talking heavy stuff, just like, why are you making a list? What are you doing? In some ways, again, I could say I was luckier because Alan had to have an operation 7 years earlier. It was a big operation, so therefore he had said, right, make sure you know where it is. So we'd gone through the filing cabinet, which again it's a great thing because you see the history, you get the story, which is how we all learn. So yeah, talk about it, show people what you do. Don't be shy. If it's a handwritten diary, I mean, we were amazed. His father didn't even write down the birth of his second son. He didn't comment it on the diary. On that day, the man had had to do extra hours, and a cow had calved. It's like, you had a son, but he didn't write that down. And you know, it's quite interesting to do, so that you then look back. But yeah, we were really lucky. We had roadmaps. So on Alan's computer, he has the farm without cows. He has the farm downscaling as we were getting older. All the drains are marked. All the different scenarios are there. It's all on his spreadsheets that he loved to play with. It's also on the farming simulator if I wanted to have a look at that, but I don't really know how to work it. But anyway, so yeah, it was all there. The pictures are drawn. Now, we're not talking high tech always. Some of them are literally just drawings. The filing cabinet is T for tractors, F for farm or P for plans, F for farming. It's really straightforward. And quite simple, as is the diary. So we discussed it, we had all these plans, and luckily for me, because everything was in place, the only incident that wasn't sorted was he was still a sole trader. I had actually come into the partnership, I was in the partnership at that point. I'd been in there 2 years, so I had already been brought in, but if there's only two in a partnership, I was warned that this would stop, so the bank account will stop. So maybe bringing in a third partner is always quite a good idea in there. But everything was in place, everything had been talked about, had been done. So it was really a question for me of I had a roadmap, which road am I going to take, which plan am I going to do? And how often am I going to change it, more to the point. But it came to me as a very light bulb moment to mothball the farm. So I've got on my phone, because I like to walk a lot. Every morning I walk, I would talk to the phone and I would go onto that mothball thing and I would put in a voice memo of an idea that I might have or where I could go. And the mothball plan started. So basically everything was sold. And it is now sitting in a state of limbo, but I do have a 5-year rolling plan, and I'll stick with that. So every November, I don't know why it's November, but every November we have a wee chat as a family, see where we're all at, see where we're all going, and roll that on to the next plan. But all in all, I was in quite a lucky position because things had been sorted beforehand. If I take it a wee bit to when the accident happened, because I was the type of person I am and I bubble with ideas all the time, I had to do things with the farm quite quickly, which people round about you when accidents happen will tell you you've got plenty of time, don't do anything quickly, but there's certain things that you should do quickly because it's going to make you think later on. So the cattle were always quite a part that I was most keen on the farm. I really liked working with the cattle, and Alan was quite keen to start winding it down, but I'm like, not, because you'll then be in the house. What are you going to do all winter when you haven't got the cattle? And the farm needs the dung from the cattle. But when the accident happened, I think within a week, I sold the 2 bulls, because I knew then that if I really did want to keep cattle, I would have to physically make the decision to then breed from them again. I was going to calve them, but if I was going to calve them a second time, I would have to do it. And it wasn't a huge financial thing or anything too radical, but it was enough. And it turned out to be the best thing I ever did, because the cattle have now gone. So following on from that, so that very first year, Alan was farming double the 160 acres that we had. We had contract farmed the neighbour's farm. So that contract was quite easy to come to an end. It just ended, and I reversed it. So I was now contract farming the land. So I contract farm the land to a neighbour and to my brother-in-law, and that's the way that works. It works really, really well. I had quite a lot of help from the college to set that up, but once it's set up, it's very straightforward to do. The cattle, I calved them. I'm going to just say I did that. It was a huge learning curve for me. But yeah, and a lot of it is because I knew from the get-go, I don't have all of the skills that Alan have. I don't have the strength. I don't weld. I can't build sheds. The fact that this business was such a successful farming business was the fact that we didn't have to pay anyone to do anything. Alan could do it all, which I couldn't. So therefore, I mean, I can't even stay awake driving a tractor. It's a nightmare, but I can drive a tractor. So yeah, that was the first thing that happened. Next was to actually, because I was mothballing it, I was wanting to hold it, it was best to sell the machinery. There's a number of ways you can sell the machinery. Again, I still think it probably is luck, or by learning. Having seen my mother go through this, I knew I could go through it. It was a hugely empowering thing, but I also knew of different ways that you can do things. And so it was decided to have a farm sale, but not a physical one. It was an online one. Again, from previous experience, having been on a farm sale, it is absolutely horrible seeing people going through all your stuff. So we had a 2-day viewing. It then went online, and I'll be honest, it was probably the worst day of my life, was seeing me selling all that machinery, but did it, and it went. And yeah, so I now rent out a couple of the sheds to farmers for storage, and I have a small business that rents another shed off it. So hopefully, the way it's looking financially, because I know farmers always like to know what it's looking financially, by contracting out the land is paying for the maintenance that it's required, hopefully on it, and the buildings I do as a separate thing. So I rent out enough sheds to make sure that the maintenance can be kept up on the sheds. So we're sitting in a total mothball situation, and I'm learning just now the stock market, so that the money that was raised from selling the machinery is hopefully working enough to, if anyone did want to reinvest it in the farm, then it's there to be reinvested. The 5-year plan, believe you me, 5 years is not very long. So it's rolling on quite quickly. So for me, you have a look at where you are right now. So when it started, we started it from when Alan died, and it's like, right, you've gone into mothball, and I've just explained where I am at the farm now. So looking forward, we have the farm cottage, and we have a house that was built. So therefore, I'm looking at where I'm going to go. This is probably too big a house for me, and I am really, really passionate about farming. I want someone to have this as a farm and be successful as Alan was. He loved farming. He was a real farmer. So I'm looking at where we're going with that. If my children, who at the minute I don't think want to take it on, I've got one in New Zealand who's considering it, but this is when you have to be quite strong in a plan. Is I have to do things for myself. I'm out there on my own now, imposter or not, which I should maybe touch on, because a lot of people who are in my situation will feel that imposter. I've felt it twice now in my life, this imposter syndrome. The first time was when I lost my father. And there I was an angry imposter, because I wanted that farm. I was 19, I loved the place. I had the same visions as my father. I wanted to farm that farm. My brother, who had inherited the farm, did not. So I was quite an angry imposter at that point, because it was something that I wanted. But now I've got it, haven't I? I've got it. And I feel like a total imposter. I don't feel it's mine. And if you have these situations, that's when you go out and you get the right help. So some people need help for the trauma or the mental thing of losing a partner. I needed financial help. So I sought out a financial advisor who understood that I was not taking it seriously. I think, is that the right word? I don't know. Was not understanding that this farm was mine and that I was to take responsibility of it. You almost, when you feel like you're an imposter, I feel like I shouldn't be here. I didn't deserve it. I don't, I've got it, and it shouldn't be mine. It should be somebody who wants it. So rolling on, we're looking at possibly selling, tenanting the farm out, but I am now I can't believe this is going to go on film, because Alan, I had to tell him that he was not allowed to build any more sheds, that he was addicted to building sheds and that he was not building any more sheds. And so what am I doing now? I'm building a shed. So we're going to build a shed along at one of the cottages, and I'm looking at possibly going there in the future. And that's where I will be moving forward, and the farm decisions will be made on the farm as a family as we go. RHET, Royal Highland Education Trust, the charity arm of the Highland Show, and it's got to be one of the best charities out there. As I keep saying, we have children in need. For me, the phrase should be children need to know. And what RHET does is they give them knowledge, and it gives them knowledge about something so simple and so vital in life is food. If we didn't have food, we'd all be dead. And it's not something that anybody really considers, where it comes from, how it's grown, how we can do this sustainably. So I got involved with RHET as a volunteer, really when it started 20 odd years ago, doing odd bits and pieces. Then the opportunity came up to take on being a coordinator. So I actually took 3 attempts at getting the job. But anyway, I got the job, and it has been the job for me. It's just brilliant. I love it. So what I do as a self-employed coordinator is I link with the schools. So I have all of the schools of Falkirk, Stirling and Clackmannanshire, work with teachers and get them out onto farms. So I have a series of volunteer farmers, speakers and what have you, and we run food and farming events. So yeah, and our aim is to connect with young people at preschool, primary school and secondary school once in their careers and just tell our story. It's great. As people know less about what's going on in a farm, dangers increase. So with RHET, we always will risk assess. So we do a lot of risk. I myself have done a lot of risk assess training and farm safety training. It's as much to do with the animals as it is with the actual infrastructure of a farm. It's a dangerous environment. Safety is a tricky one because you can do absolutely everything. I'm now faced with, which is something else that you might want to add, there's a fatal accident inquiry. If there is an incident on the farm, there's always followed up with a fatal accident inquiry. For me, it's kind of rolled on to be a bigger thing because in 2023, there were 5 other farmers that died falling in a similar way to Alan. So they've decided to group it together and run a joint fatal accident inquiry. And it frustrates me because when you look at it, the story's the same. These accidents happen, and no matter what you do, thinking safety, you can't prevent a kind of freak accident. Where farms are harder is because the skill set and the fact that there's not as many people to kind of help out. You're often working on your own, which makes it a slightly more dangerous situation. But yeah, so risk assessing, everything is always risk assessed, and we're always looking at safety. And that's when I came up with, it's actually just being efficient and tidy. When you look at any kind of safety in the home, if the house is tidy, you're far less likely to fall over toys or get yourself burnt on the fire or anything if there's a clear pathway through. So yeah. So looking forward to the conference on the 11th, I want to just learn from other people, meet other people and tell my story. I feel sharing my story hopefully will give folk a little bit more confidence because I learned, by the hard way, really. I learned by seeing my mother go through it. So my mother's gone through it, I'm going through it, and I think if somebody can learn from listening to others and just make really small changes, there's so many just really simple things you can do that just make a really difficult situation just that little bit more doable. And it is doable. You know, tomorrow is coming. I can remember the day when the cows had calved and everything else, and my first grandchild had been born. I met my friend, and I'm just like, oh, I don't know how much more I can do this. And she's going, you can do it because tomorrow is coming. And that's, you know, if you always look forward, you're gonna get there. And yeah, I'm looking forward to that. And also, I'll be hearing loads of other stories, and that just sets me off again, doesn't it? So if there was any advice that I could give to someone right now, would be think ahead, and to do it, just think, what 3 words? You know, it's quite funny really, because if you ask your partner, describe yourself in 3 words, and then work out which way you want those 3 words to be, you've started the story, you've started the conversation, and you're going to think it later on. That's how it came to be. Katie changed the plan Brisbane because you know, it was a joke really, and it's like, right, okay, so what are your plans now? What is your plan? Because you know we're going to change it. You're going to change it. So that's the way it goes. But this is a good funny wee bit at the end. It's got to be 3 words, because as I was growing up, I always thought I was a careful person, because everybody said to me, careful, Katie, careful, Katie. But what they said, if they'd done it in 3 words, be careful, Katie, I would have understood what they meant. Because I'm thinking, I'm a careful person, I can do that because I'm careful, but actually, it's think about it, Katie, be careful, Katie. 3 words.